Hey everyone, before I tell you this story, I need to know, where are you watching from right now? Drop your city or state in the comments and tell me, are you a dog person or a cat person? Because I'm about to tell you a story about how my dog saved my life. And I mean that literally. He didn't pull me from a burning building or fight off an intruder. He did something even more important. He showed me the truth when everyone else was lying. So let me take you back to October 15th, my 7th wedding anniversary. I'm Jordan Hayes, 33 years old, living in Portland, Oregon with a husband I adored and a job at a mid-sized accounting firm that paid the bills but didn't exactly set my soul on fire. But I had Kyle and I had Cooper, my golden retriever who I'd adopted when he was just 8 weeks old. And I thought that was enough. I thought I had everything figured out. I'd planned the perfect anniversary dinner. Kyle loved Italian food, so I'd made reservations at this little place downtown where we'd had our first date. I'd taken the afternoon off work, gotten my hair done, bought a new dress, dark blue, his favorite color. I even bought him a gift I couldn't really afford, a vintage watch he'd been eyeing for months at an antique shop near our house. When I got home around 4, Cooper greeted me at the door like he always did, jumping, tail wagging, that goofy dog smile on his face. But something was different. He wasn't his usual happy-go-lucky self. He kept running to the bedroom and back, whining, like he was trying to tell me something. "What's wrong, buddy?" I asked, scratching behind his ears. "Is Daddy home?" Kyle's car wasn't in the driveway, but sometimes he'd parked on the street when he was running in and out. Cooper just whined louder and pawed at my leg. I walked through our house, a cute 3-bedroom bungalow in northeast Portland that we'd bought 5 years ago. Everything looked normal in the living room, the kitchen, the guest room. But when I got to our bedroom, I noticed immediately that something was off. Kyle's side of the closet was empty. Not just 1 or 2 outfits missing. I mean empty. His suits, his casual clothes, his shoes, his gym bag, everything gone. My heart started pounding. I opened his dresser drawers. Empty. His toiletries from the bathroom? Gone. His laptop that usually sat on the desk? Not there. On the bed, positioned carefully in the center like it had been placed there for dramatic effect, was his wedding ring and a folded piece of paper. Cooper sat at my feet, pressing against my legs like he knew what was coming, like he was trying to hold me up before I fell. I picked up the note with shaking hands and read, "Jordan, I'm sorry to do this on our anniversary, but I can't keep living a lie. I've been unhappy for a long time, and I finally found someone who makes me feel alive again. By the time you read this, I'll be moved in with her. My lawyer will contact you about the divorce. I hope you can understand and that we can do this amicably. Kyle. P.S. I couldn't take Cooper. He's always been more your dog anyway." I read it twice, 3 times, trying to make the words make sense. Someone who makes him feel alive again, moved in with her, divorce. My legs gave out and I sank to the floor. Cooper immediately climbed into my lap, all 70 pounds of him, and started licking my face, my hands, trying to comfort me in the only way he knew how. I don't know how long I sat there. Minutes, hours. The room got dark around me, and I realized I'd never turned on any lights. The anniversary reservation time came and went. My phone buzzed with a text from the restaurant asking if I was still coming. Finally, I managed to stand up. Cooper followed me to every room as I walked through the house, noticing what else was missing. Kyle had taken the TV from the living room, the nice one we'd bought last year. He'd taken his gaming console, his collection of vinyl records, his grandfather's antique desk from the study. But he'd left the furniture, the dishes, the art on the walls. He'd left all the wedding photos. which felt like a particularly cruel touch. He'd left everything that would remind me of what we had, of what I thought we'd had. I called my best friend, Claire, a lawyer I'd known since college. She didn't answer. It was after 9 by then, and she had kids who'd be in bed. I left a rambling, tear-soaked voicemail that probably didn't make much sense. Then I did what any devastated person does in 2024. I opened social media to torture myself. That's when I saw it. A photo posted 30 minutes ago from my sister's Instagram account. A selfie of her and Kyle, cheeks pressed together, both of them smiling like they just won the lottery. The caption read, "Finally happy, finally home. Hashtag new beginnings, hashtag soulmate, hashtag no regrets." My sister. My baby sister, who I'd helped raise after our dad died, who I'd paid for her first semester of community college when money was tight, who'd been my maid of honor at my wedding 7 years ago, who'd spent countless Sundays at our house, eating dinners I cooked, playing with Cooper in our backyard, pretending to be my friend. She was the someone who made Kyle feel alive. And from the looks of their staged happy photo, they'd been planning this for a while. Cooper nudged my hand with his nose, breaking me from my spiral. I looked down at him, at his big brown eyes that seemed to hold more empathy than any human I knew, and I realized something. Kyle had left me. My sister had betrayed me. But Cooper had stayed. That night, I slept on the couch with Cooper curled up beside me, his head resting on my stomach. Every time I started crying, he'd lift his head and lick my tears away. I thought that was the worst of it. I thought the betrayal, the humiliation, the loss, that was rock bottom. I had no idea what was really coming. The next few days were a blur of crying, rage, and then more crying. Claire came over the morning after everything fell apart, took one look at me, and immediately went into lawyer mode. "Okay," she said, sitting at my kitchen table with a legal pad. "Tell me everything." I showed her the note, the empty closet, the Instagram post that Madison had since taken down, probably after our mother called her screaming. Claire's expression got darker with each new piece of information. "This is bad, Jordan, really bad, but we're going to handle it systematically. First, have you checked your bank accounts?" I hadn't. I'd been too destroyed to think about practical things like money. We pulled them up on my laptop, and my stomach dropped. Our joint checking account had been drained. Kyle had withdrawn $35,000 3 days ago, everything except the minimum balance. Our joint savings? Also drained, another $48,000 gone. The investment account we'd been building for a down payment on a bigger house someday? You guessed it, liquidated, $127,000 transferred out. "He can't do that," I said, my voice rising. "That's joint money. That's my money, too." "Technically, he can access joint accounts," Claire said grimly. And he did. But don't worry, we'll get it back in the divorce settlement. This kind of asset dissipation right before filing for divorce doesn't look good for him. "He filed already?" "Check your email." I did. Sure enough, there it was. An email from Kyle's lawyer, received yesterday afternoon while I'd been sitting on my bedroom floor having a breakdown. Kyle Peterson had filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. The papers were attached. "What about the house?" I asked, looking around at the home we'd built together. Claire winced. "That's going to be complicated. It's in both your names, so it'll be part of the settlement. Do you have a prenup?" "No." Kyle said he didn't believe in them. He said they were unromantic. Of course he did. Claire made a note. "Okay, here's what we're going to do. First, you're going to open your own bank account today, separate, in your own name only, and have your paycheck deposited there. Second, you're going to document everything Kyle took from the house. Make a list, take photos of what's missing, find receipts if you have them. Third, you're not going to engage with Madison or Kyle. Not in person, not on social media, not via text. Everything goes through lawyers now." I nodded numbly. What about Mom? Our mother, Beth, had called me 17 times since seeing Madison's Instagram post. I hadn't answered any of them. I knew what she'd say. Something about how Madison was young and foolish, how Kyle must have seduced her, how families need to stick together and forgive. Mom had always made excuses for Madison, ever since she was little. What does your gut tell you? Claire asked. That she's going to take Madison's side. She always does. Then don't talk to her yet either. You need to protect yourself right now, Jordan. You're in shock, and people in shock make bad decisions. Give yourself time to process this before you deal with family dynamics. Cooper, who'd been lying at my feet throughout this entire conversation, suddenly got up and went to the back door, whining. He needs to go out, I said, starting to stand. I'll take him. Claire grabbed his leash from the hook by the door. You drink some water. You look dehydrated. While she was outside with Cooper, I stared at the divorce papers on my laptop screen. Kyle was asking for half of everything, the house, the cars, the retirement accounts. But he'd already taken more than half of our liquid assets. How was that fair? Claire came back in looking troubled, Cooper trotting behind her. Jordan, when's the last time you were in your backyard? I don't know, maybe a week? Why? You need to see something. I followed her outside, and my heart sank. Our backyard, which I'd always kept neat and tidy, was torn up. There were holes everywhere, near the fence line that bordered the alley, around the perimeter of the property. Deep holes, like someone had been digging, frantically. Did Kyle do this before he left? Some kind of final screw you? I looked at Cooper, who immediately looked away, the canine equivalent of a guilty conscience. No, I said slowly. I think Cooper did this. He's been acting weird lately, anxious, restless. I thought it was just stress from sensing tension between me and Kyle. But maybe he's stressed about everything changing, Claire finished. Dogs can sense when their pack is falling apart. But I wasn't so sure, because as I looked at those holes more closely, I noticed something odd. They weren't random. Cooper had been digging in very specific places, near the fence line that bordered the alley, around the perimeter of the property, like he was searching for something, or trying to tell me something. Come on, Claire said, guiding me back inside. You need to eat something. When's the last time you ate? I couldn't remember. Time had become meaningless. I moved through the next few days like a ghost in my own life. I called in sick to work, unable to face my colleagues and their inevitable questions. I ignored calls from my mother and from numbers I didn't recognize, probably Madison, trying to explain or justify or whatever she thought she could say that would make this okay. The only person I talked to was Claire, who came over every day to check on me, and the only one who never left my side was Cooper. He stayed glued to me, following me from room to room, sleeping pressed against me at night. When I cried, he'd rest his head on my lap. When I couldn't get out of bed, he'd lay beside me, patient and steady and infinitely loyal. At least you didn't leave me, buddy, I whispered to him one night, stroking his soft fur. At least I still have you. His tail thumped once against the bed, and he licked my hand. Only if I'd known then what he'd already figured out. Only if I'd paid attention to what he was trying to tell me with all that digging, all that anxious behavior. But I was too consumed by my own pain to see what was right in front of me. That was about to change. About a week after Kyle left, I finally dragged myself back to work. My boss, a kind woman named Patricia, had been understanding about my emergency time off, but I couldn't hide forever. Bills didn't stop just because your life imploded. The office was awful. Everyone knew. Gossip travels fast in a mid-sized company, but they were doing that thing where they pretend they don't know while obviously knowing. Pitying glances, uncomfortable smiles, conversations that stopped when I walked by. During my lunch break, I sat in my car and cried. Then I pulled myself together, fixed my makeup in the rearview mirror, and went back inside. I could do this. I had to do this. When I got home that evening, Cooper greeted me at the door. But his behavior was even stranger than it had been. He was agitated, pacing back and forth, whining in that high-pitched way that meant he was seriously distressed. "What's wrong, baby?" I asked, dropping my bag and kneeling down to his level. "You okay?" He ran to the back door, then back to me, then to the door again. I let him out, thinking maybe he just really needed to go, but instead of doing his business, he immediately started digging again, this time at the corner of the yard, near the fence. "Cooper, stop!" I called. "You're destroying the yard." He didn't stop. He kept digging furiously, dirt flying everywhere. I walked over to pull him away, and that's when I noticed it. The fence post he was digging near was loose. Not just a little loose, but like someone had deliberately loosened it. I wiggled it, and it came partially out of the ground. Behind it, tucked in a hollow space between the fence and the ground, was something wrapped in plastic. My heart racing, I pulled it out. It was a plastic bag, duct-taped shut, protecting something inside from the dirt and moisture. Cooper sat beside me, tail wagging now, looking proud of himself. Inside the bag were documents, papers. I carried them inside, Cooper following, and spread them out on my kitchen table under the bright overhead light. They were financial records, account statements, transfer receipts, emails printed out and highlighted. But they weren't for accounts I recognized. These were offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, wire transfers to shell companies, spreadsheets showing money being moved through various channels. And Kyle's name was on everything. My hands were shaking as I went through page after page. This wasn't just our joint savings. This was hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe millions, being shuffled around in ways that looked distinctly illegal. Tax evasion, maybe. Money laundering, possibly. I didn't understand all of it, but I understood enough to know that Kyle had been hiding money and breaking laws. But why hide these documents in our backyard, and how did Cooper find them? I grabbed my phone and called Claire. "You need to come over, now. Cooper found something." She was there in 20 minutes. I showed her the documents, explained where they'd been hidden. Her eyes got wider with each page she turned. "Jordan," she said slowly, this is bad. Like federal investigation bad. Kyle's been embezzling money, laundering it through offshore accounts. Some of these transfers are from his clients at the firm where he works. Why would he hide documents in our backyard? Because he couldn't keep them at his office, too risky if there's ever an audit. He couldn't keep them at his apartment before you got married. Your house was the perfect place. You worked during the day, so he could access the yard anytime, and he never thought you'd find them. But why not take them when he left? Claire's expression turned grim. Because he's planning to come back for them. Think about it. He can't just show up at the house now that you're separated, but if he has a legal reason to be here, like picking up belongings during the divorce proceedings? I see. He was going to wait until he had legitimate access and then retrieve them. Exactly. But Cooper found them first. She looked at the dog, who was sitting at my feet looking pleased with himself. Good boy, Cooper. Very good boy. I sat down heavily. What do I do with this? We need to think strategically, Jordan. This is leverage, major leverage. Kyle has drained your bank accounts and is asking for half the house, right? Well, now you have evidence that he's been committing serious financial crimes. If this goes to the authorities, he could go to prison. You're saying I should use this to negotiate the divorce? I'm saying you should talk to a criminal lawyer and a forensic accountant before you do anything, because these documents aren't just about your divorce. They're evidence of crimes against other people, Kyle's clients, the government. This is bigger than just you and him now. Cooper barked once, sharp and insistent. We both looked at him. He was staring at the back door again, hackles raised, growling low in his throat. "What is it, buddy?" I asked. Then I heard it, a sound from the backyard. Someone was out there. Stay here, Claire whispered, pulling out her phone. I'm calling the police. But I was already moving toward the window, peeking through the blinds. In the dim light from my neighbor's back porch, I could see a figure near the fence, right where Cooper had been digging. A man, crouched down, searching for something. Kyle. He'd come back for the documents, and he had no idea I'd already found them. He's in the backyard, I hissed to Claire. Kyle's out there right now. Claire was already on the phone with 911, explaining that there was an intruder in my backyard. Cooper was going ballistic, barking and scratching at the door, desperate to get outside. Don't let him out, Claire said, holding Cooper's collar. We don't know if Kyle's dangerous. It's Kyle, he's not. But even as I said it, I realized I didn't actually know that. This man had stolen hundreds of thousands of dollars, betrayed me with my sister, and was apparently involved in some serious financial crimes. What else was he capable of? We watched through the window as Kyle searched frantically near the fence, getting more and more agitated when he couldn't find what he was looking for. At one point, he pulled out his phone, the screen lighting up his face. He looked stressed, desperate even. Then he did something that made my blood run cold. He pulled out a gun. Claire, I whispered, he has a gun. I see it. The police are 2 minutes away. Stay away from the windows. But I couldn't look away. Kyle was pacing now, phone to his ear, talking to someone in urgent, clipped sentences. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but his body language screamed panic. Cooper was still barking, and Kyle's head snapped toward the house. Our eyes met through the window, just for a second, and I saw something in his face I'd never seen before. Not the man I'd married, not the man I'd built a life with. Someone else, someone capable of things I didn't want to imagine. He moved toward the house. He's coming to the door, I said, backing away. Claire, he's... The sound of police sirens cut through the night. Kyle froze, looked toward the front of the house where the red and blue lights were now visible, then bolted. He jumped the back fence with an agility I didn't know he had and disappeared into the alley. 2 officers came to the door moments later. Claire explained everything while I stood there in shock, Cooper pressed against my legs, still on high alert. We'll search the area, one officer said, but if he had a car waiting in the alley, he's probably long gone. Ma'am, you said you have documents that belong to him? I showed them the financial records. The officers exchanged a look. We're going to need to take these as evidence, and you're going to need to make a statement. But first, are you safe here tonight? Is there somewhere else you can stay? She can stay with me, Claire said immediately. Come on, Jordan, pack a bag. Grab Cooper's stuff, too. As I moved through the house, gathering clothes and dog food, my mind was spinning. Kyle had come back for those documents with a gun. He'd been willing to do what? Break in? Threaten me? Worse? The man I'd married would never have done that, but maybe I'd never really known him at all. At Claire's house, I couldn't sleep. I lay on her guest bed with Cooper curled up beside me, staring at the ceiling, trying to process everything that had happened. My phone buzzed with texts. The police had found Kyle's car abandoned 3 blocks away, but no sign of him. He was in the wind. Around 3 in the morning, my phone rang. An unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Jordan? It was Madison's voice, shaky and scared. Jordan, please, I need to talk to you. I have nothing to say to you. Please, just listen. Kyle's here, and he's acting crazy. He's saying things that don't make sense, talking about needing to fix everything, about how it's all falling apart. Jordan, I'm scared. What's going on? For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then I remembered she'd helped destroy my life. Whatever she's dealing with now is her own doing. Where are you? I asked. At my apartment. Kyle's in the living room, and he's been on the phone for hours with someone. I heard him say your name, and something about documents. Jordan, what documents? What's happening? You really don't know? What? She sounded genuinely confused and frightened. Kyle's embezzling money, laundering it through offshore accounts. He hid evidence in my backyard, and he came back tonight with a gun trying to get it. The police are looking for him. Silence. Then, he what? You heard me. Your soulmate? Your new beginning? He's a criminal, and you've been helping him hide. I haven't helped him with anything. I didn't know about any of this. Jordan, I swear, I thought you just what? Fell in love? Is that what you're going to tell yourself? The anger I'd been suppressing for days came flooding out. You've been sleeping with my husband for how long, Madison? Weeks? Months? A year? 6 months, she whispered. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant it to happen. It just... Don't you dare say it just happened. You made choices, both of you, and now you're dealing with the consequences. Jordan, please, he has a gun. I heard you say he had a gun. I'm scared. What if he... Call the police. Tell them where he is. That's all you need to do. I can't turn him in. I love him. I laughed, a bitter sound. You love him? You don't even know him. You know what he wanted you to know. You fell in love with a lie, Madison, just like I did. The difference is, I'm getting out, and you're about to learn exactly what kind of man you stole from me. I hung up. Claire was standing in the doorway. You okay? No, but I will be. I looked at Cooper, who was watching me with those soulful brown eyes. Thanks to this guy, I found the truth before it was too late. He tried to warn me. All that digging, all that anxious behavior, he knew something was wrong. Dogs are smarter than we give them credit for, Claire said. Cooper knew Kyle was bad news. He never liked Kyle much even before all this. I thought it was jealousy or something, but Cooper knew. My phone buzzed again. This time it was the police. Kyle had been arrested at Madison's apartment. Madison called 911, and they'd found him with the gun, completely unraveling. The nightmare was over. Or so I thought. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of police interviews, lawyer meetings, and discoveries that kept getting worse. Kyle wasn't just embezzling from his firm. He'd been running an elaborate Ponzi scheme, using new client money to pay returns to old clients while siphoning millions into offshore accounts. His firm had 23 clients who'd invested with him, most of them retirees who trusted him with their life savings. The total amount stolen was estimated at over $4 million. And there was more. Detective Lisa Chen, who was leading the investigation, called me in for a meeting with a forensic accountant named Dr. Harrison Brooks. They spread out documents on the conference table. Some of them were the papers Cooper had found. Others were files they'd seized from Kyle's office and computer. Mrs. Peterson, Dr. Brooks began. It's Hayes, I corrected. I'm going back to my maiden name. Miss Hayes, then. We've been going through Kyle's financial records, and we need to ask you some difficult questions. Did you ever notice large sums of money appearing in your joint accounts? Unexplained deposits, transfers? No. Kyle handled most of our finances. He said it was part of his job, that he was better at it than me. I trusted him. Did he ever ask you to sign documents without reading them? Business papers, tax forms, anything like that? I thought back, and my stomach sank. Yes, sometimes he'd bring home documents during tax season and ask me to sign as his spouse. He said it was standard for joint returns. Dr. Brooks exchanged a glance with Detective Chen. Miss Hayes, I'm afraid some of those documents weren't tax returns. Your husband forged your signature on several occasions, but there are also legitimate documents that you signed. You're listed as an officer on 2 of the shell companies he used to launder money. The room started spinning. I'm what? It appears Kyle set up the companies in both your names to make them look more legitimate. Husband and wife partnerships are common in financial services. But the problem is, your signature is on the incorporation papers. Legally, that could make you complicit. But I didn't know. My voice was rising. I didn't know anything about this. We believe you, Detective Chen said gently, but the federal prosecutors are going to look at this very carefully. With Kyle's assets frozen and your joint accounts drained, they're going to wonder if you were hiding money too. This is insane. I'm a victim here. We know, and that's what we're going to prove. But Miss Hayes, I need to be very direct with you. There's a possibility, small but real, that you could face charges as an accomplice unless we can definitively show you had no knowledge of Kyle's crimes. I felt like I was going to throw up. How do I prove that? By being completely transparent. Give us access to everything, your phone records, emails, financial documents, everything. Let us build a timeline that shows Kyle was operating independently, keeping you in the dark. Okay, yes, whatever you need. Over the next few days, I turned over my entire life to the investigators. Every email, every text message, every financial document. They interviewed my coworkers, my friends, even Claire. They were looking for any sign that I'd known what Kyle was doing, but they found something else instead. Detective Chen called me back in, this time with a different expression on her face. Miss Hayes, we've found evidence that Kyle was planning something that involves you directly. She showed me emails recovered from Kyle's computer, emails between him and Madison, dated going back 8 months. The first few were what you'd expect: flirty messages, plans to meet up, the usual affair communications. But then they got darker. Madison, what about Jordan? We can't just leave her with nothing. Kyle, she'll be fine. She has a good job. She'll move on. Madison, but the house, the accounts, she deserves half of everything. Kyle, actually, she doesn't. I've been setting up accounts she doesn't know about. When I file for divorce, I'll make sure everything looks like we're broke. The house is underwater, the accounts are empty. She won't get anything because there won't be anything to get. Madison, that seems mean. Kyle, it's business, trust me. Then, 2 months before he left me, Kyle, I have a better idea. What if Jordan takes the fall for my offshore accounts? Madison, what do you mean? Kyle, her signature is on the incorporation papers. If the FBI ever investigates, I can claim she was the one running the scheme. She's an accountant. She has the knowledge. She had access to all our files. It's actually the perfect setup. Madison, you'd send your wife to prison? Kyle, ex-wife once we're done with the divorce. And yes, if it means protecting us and our future. Jordan's smart. She'll probably figure out a defense, but it'll buy us time to disappear with the money if we need to. I stared at the screen, unable to breathe. Kyle hadn't just been planning to leave me. He'd been planning to frame me, to make me take the fall for his crimes, while he and Madison ran off with millions. Miss Hayes? Detective Chen's voice seemed far away. Are you all right? He was going to let me go to prison, I whispered. He was going to destroy my life and let me go to prison. Yes, but here's the thing. We have proof of his intent. These emails show premeditation, planning. This actually helps your case significantly. It shows you were a victim of manipulation, not an accomplice. Does Madison know that he was planning this? We're not sure. The emails show her having concerns, but also going along with his plans. We're bringing her in for questioning today. I thought about my sister, young, foolish Madison who'd stolen my husband. Had she known what Kyle was really like? Had she been complicit in his plan to frame me, or had she been another one of his victims? Part of me wanted her to suffer, but another part, the part that remembered the little girl I'd helped raise, hoped she'd been duped too. What happens now? I asked. Now we build our case against Kyle, and you, Miss Hayes, are going to help us because Kyle Peterson made a big mistake. What's that? Detective Chen smiled grimly. He underestimated you and your dog. 3 days later, Claire called me with news. Madison's lawyer contacted me. She wants to meet with you in person. Absolutely not. Jordan, hear me out. She's cooperating with the investigation. She's giving the police everything: her phone, her emails, her financial records, and she has information about Kyle that could help your case. I don't care. I never want to see her again. I understand, but think about this strategically. Madison can testify that you knew nothing about Kyle's crimes. She can confirm that he kept you in the dark, that he manipulated both of you. Her testimony could be the difference between the prosecutors viewing you as a victim or a suspect. I sat with that for a long moment. I hated that she was right. Fine, but you're there with me, and if she tries to justify what she did, I'm walking out. We met at Claire's office, neutral territory. Madison arrived looking nothing like the confident, glowing woman from that Instagram photo. She looked like she'd aged 10 years in a month. Dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, wearing yoga pants and an oversized sweater. She sat across from me, her lawyer beside her, and for a long moment, neither of us spoke. "Thank you for coming," she finally said, her voice small. I didn't respond. "I know you hate me. I know I destroyed everything, and I know saying sorry isn't enough. It'll never be enough. But Jordan, I need you to know I didn't know about the money. I didn't know what Kyle was doing. I swear on everything, I didn't know." "But you knew he was married to me," I said coldly. "You knew he was my husband. You knew you were betraying your own sister. So forgive me if I don't really care that you're shocked to discover he's also a criminal." She flinched like I'd slapped her. "You're right. There's no excuse for what I did. But I need to tell you what happened, not to make excuses, but so you understand." "I don't want to understand. Please." Tears were streaming down her face now. "Please, just let me explain. Then you never have to see me again." Claire nodded at me. I sighed and gestured for Madison to continue. "It started last year at Mom's birthday party," Madison said. "Kyle and I were both early helping set up. We got to talking and he was so attentive, interested in my life, my job, my dreams. You'd been so busy with work, and I know that sounds awful, but I felt like he saw me in a way no one else did." "So you slept with him?" "Not then, not for months, but we started texting, just friendly at first, then more. He'd complain about how you two were growing apart, how you didn't connect anymore. I told myself I was just being a supportive sister-in-law, someone he could talk to. I wanted to scream at her, that I forced myself to stay silent. By March, we'd crossed a line. I knew it was wrong. I hated myself for it. But Kyle kept saying you'd be better off without him, that your marriage was already over, that he was just waiting for the right time to tell you. And you believed him." "I believed him, because if I believed him, then I wasn't the villain. I was just the next chapter. But Jordan, I swear I didn't know about the money. When he showed me the apartment he'd rented for us, I asked how he could afford such a nice place on his salary. He said he'd been saving, that he had investments. I didn't question it." "You didn't want to question it." "You're right, I didn't, because questioning it would mean facing what I was doing. But after he got arrested, the police showed me everything: the embezzlement, the offshore accounts, the fact that he'd forged your signature on documents. Jordan, he had a whole other life we knew nothing about." "He was going to frame me," I said. "Did they tell you that? He was planning to make it look like I was the one running the scheme so he could run away with you and the money." Madison's face went white. "What?" "There are emails between you and him discussing his plan." No, I never." "Those emails where he talked about protecting us from investigations, I thought he meant hiring lawyers, making sure we couldn't be dragged into his business dealings if things went wrong at his firm. I didn't know he meant framing you for his crimes. Jordan, I swear, if I'd known that—" "You would have what? Suddenly developed a conscience? The bitterness in my voice was thick to cut. You were fine with destroying my marriage, taking my husband, letting him drain our bank accounts, but framing me for federal crimes? That's where you draw a line? Yes, she was crying harder now. I know I'm a terrible person. I know I destroyed us, but I never wanted you to go to prison. I never wanted you to lose everything. I just wanted... You wanted him. You wanted what I had, and you were willing to betray me to get it. Yes, she whispered, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. We sat in silence. Her lawyer cleared his throat. Miss Hayes, Madison has agreed to testify against Kyle. She's providing evidence that shows he deliberately kept you ignorant of his financial crimes, that he actively prevented you from knowing about the offshore accounts. Her testimony is crucial to establishing that you were a victim, not a co-conspirator. And what does she get out of this? I asked. Immunity from prosecution, Claire said quietly. The feds aren't charging her with anything because she wasn't involved in the financial crimes. She's just the other woman. The other woman. My sister was the other woman in my marriage. Madison, I said, and she looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. I need to know something. Did you love him, or did you just want to take something that was mine? She was quiet for a long time. Then, I don't know. I told myself I loved him, but now knowing who he really is, what he was capable of, I don't think I ever knew him at all. I think I was in love with the idea of him, with being chosen over you. At least she was being honest. I have one condition. You testify against Kyle. You tell the truth about everything, and then you stay away from me. No calls, no texts, no showing up at family events trying to reconcile. You stay out of my life. Okay, whatever you want. And Madison, I stood up, preparing to leave. I hope someday you find someone who makes you happy, someone who's actually worthy of you. Because for all your faults, you deserved better than Kyle Peterson. She started crying again, harder this time. I walked out without looking back. In the parking lot, Claire caught up to me. That was generous of you, the last part. I'm not doing it for her. I'm doing it for me. Holding on to hate would just give Kyle more power over my life. He's already taken enough. Cooper was waiting in Claire's car, and the moment I opened the door, he jumped out and pressed himself against my legs. I knelt down and buried my face in his fur. Good boy, such a good boy. You tried to warn me about Kyle, didn't you? You knew he was bad. Cooper licked my face, his tail wagging. Dogs really do know. They see things we're too blind to see, and Cooper had seen right through Kyle from the beginning. I just wished I'd trusted him sooner. Over the next 3 months, my life became consumed by the case. Kyle was facing 32 federal charges: wire fraud, money laundering, tax evasion, embezzlement. The prosecutors were throwing everything they had at him, and I was the government's star witness. Dr. Brooks, the forensic accountant, walked me through hundreds of documents, teaching me to understand Kyle's scheme. It was actually brilliant in a horrible way. He'd layered so many shell companies and offshore accounts that tracking the money was like solving a maze. He used something called round tripping, Dr. Brooks explained during one of our prep sessions. He'd move money from client A's account to an offshore company, then back to another client's account as investment returns, making it look like the investments were performing well. Meanwhile, he was skimming millions off the top. But why involve me? Why put my name on those companies? Plausible deniability. If he ever got caught, he could claim his wife was the accountant. She had access to everything. Maybe she was the one actually running the scheme. You were his backup plan. It made me sick to think about. Kyle had married me, built a life with me, all while setting me up as his potential fall guy. The good news, Dr. Brooks continued, is that the evidence clearly shows you had no knowledge. You never logged into any of the offshore accounts. Your work computer has no traces of the financial software Kyle used. Your search history doesn't show any suspicious queries. You're clean. What about Madison? She's testifying too, right? Yes. Her testimony will establish timeline and intent. She'll confirm that Kyle deliberately kept you in the dark about his finances, that he controlled all the money in your marriage. The week before the trial started, Detective Chen called with unexpected news. Ms. Hayes, we found something else. Kyle had a storage unit we didn't know about. His sister finally gave us the location after months of questioning. You're going to want to see what was inside. I met her at the police station, where they laid out the contents of the storage unit on a series of tables. Boxes of documents, hard drives, and something that made my blood run cold. Surveillance equipment. Kyle had cameras installed in your house. Hidden cameras in the bedroom, bathroom, living room. He was recording you. I felt violated in a way I hadn't even known was possible. Why? We're not sure. Maybe as leverage, maybe as insurance. But Ms. Hayes, we reviewed the footage, all of it, and there's something you need to see. She pulled up a video on her laptop. It was footage from my kitchen, dated 3 days before Kyle left me. The angle showed Kyle at my kitchen table, talking on the phone, completely unaware he was being recorded by his own camera. No, it's perfect, Kyle was saying to whoever was on the other end. Jordan has no idea about any of it. She's so trusting it's almost too easy. When I file for divorce, she'll be so destroyed she won't even think to look at the finances until it's too late. The voice on the other end, male, not Madison, responded, "And if she does figure it out?" Then we moved to Plan B. I've got her signature on enough documents to make her look complicit. She's an accountant. She'll look guilty as hell. Plus, I've been keeping records of every time she signed something without reading it. I'll claim she knew what she was doing, that she's just playing dumb now that we've been caught. Cold, man. That's your wife. Ex-wife soon, and honestly, she'll be fine. Jordan always lands on her feet. Meanwhile, I'll be in the Caymans with $4 million and a woman who actually appreciates me. The video ended. I sat staring at the blank screen, shaking. He recorded himself confessing to the plan, with his own cameras. Apparently, he wanted documentation of everything, in case he needed it later. But he didn't count on us finding the storage unit. This video is going to be Exhibit A in the trial. The jury will see exactly who Kyle Peterson really is. I thought about that man in the video, so casual about destroying my life, so convinced he'd get away with it. And I thought about Cooper, digging in the backyard, finding those documents before Kyle could retrieve them. "My dog saved me," I said. If Cooper hadn't found those papers, Kyle would have gotten away with it all. Dogs are pretty smart, Detective Chen agreed. Cooper knew something was wrong. Maybe he smelled Kyle in the backyard when he was burying the documents. Maybe he sensed your distress. Either way, that dog is a hero. That night, I gave Cooper an extra long walk and the biggest dog treat I could find at the pet store. He'd saved me from prison, from financial ruin, from taking the fall for crimes I didn't commit. "You're my good boy," I told him, watching him happily destroy his treat. "My very best boy." The trial started the following Monday. The courthouse was packed. Kyle's case had gotten a lot of media attention. Financial advisor accused of running a $4 million Ponzi scheme while framing wife was the kind of headline that drew crowds. I arrived with Claire, Cooper waiting in her car outside. No dogs allowed in court, unfortunately. Madison was already there, with her lawyer, sitting on the opposite side of the gallery. We didn't make eye contact. Kyle was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit, looking gaunt and desperate. When he saw me, his expression flickered. Guilt, anger, fear, I couldn't tell. Part of me wanted him to apologize, to show some remorse. but mostly I just wanted it to be over. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Angela Romano, delivered a devastating opening statement. She laid out Kyle's scheme in clear, simple terms that even people without financial backgrounds could understand. She explained how he stole from retirees, how he hid millions, how he planned to frame me. And, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the defendant thought he'd committed the perfect crime, but he made one critical mistake. He underestimated his wife and her dog. A ripple of murmurs went through the courtroom. Cooper was going to be part of the story, the dog who'd uncovered the evidence. Kyle's attorney, an expensive defense attorney who'd clearly been paid with stolen money, tried to paint me as a co-conspirator. Jordan Hayes is an accountant, he argued. She had the knowledge and access to be involved in this scheme. The prosecution wants you to believe she's an innocent victim, but is that really credible? Would Kyle Peterson really be able to run this operation without his accountant wife noticing? But then they showed the video. Kyle, in our kitchen, confessing to his plan to frame me. The defense attorney's face fell. There was no spinning that. Over the next 2 weeks, I watched the case unfold. Witness after witness testified about Kyle's crimes, his lies, his manipulation. His former clients took the stand, crying as they described how they'd trusted him with their retirement savings and lost everything. Madison testified, explaining how Kyle had kept her in the dark about the extent of his crimes, how he'd manipulated her to betray me. She looked directly at me when she said, "I can never undo what I did to my sister, but I can at least tell the truth now." When it was my turn to testify, I was terrified, but Claire had prepared me. I answered every question honestly, explaining how Kyle controlled our finances, how he asked me to sign documents without reading them, how I trusted him completely. "Did you have any knowledge of your husband's offshore accounts?" "No." "Did you have any knowledge of his shell companies?" "No." "Did you benefit from his crimes?" "No. He drained our joint accounts before leaving me. I lost everything." The defense attorney tried to shake me on cross-examination, but he had nothing. The evidence was too clear, the video too damning. On the final day, the jury deliberated for less than 3 hours before returning with their verdict. Guilty, on all 32 counts. Kyle showed no emotion as the verdict was read. He just stared straight ahead, like he couldn't believe his perfect plan had fallen apart. The judge scheduled sentencing for 3 weeks later. Kyle was denied bail and remanded to custody. As they let him out, he looked at me one last time. I expected anger or defiance, but what I saw was resignation. He knew it was over. The sentencing hearing was brief. The judge, clearly disgusted by Kyle's crimes and his attempt to frame me, gave him the maximum sentence, 28 years in federal prison. "Mr. Peterson," the judge said, "you didn't just steal money. You stole people's security, their retirement, their trust, and you were prepared to send your wife to prison to cover your crimes. The court finds your actions reprehensible and deserving of significant punishment." Kyle's lawyer filed an appeal, but everyone knew it was pointless. The evidence was overwhelming. Kyle Peterson would spend most of his remaining life in prison. As for the money, the FBI had frozen Kyle's offshore accounts and were in the process of liquidating assets to repay his victims. It would take years, and most people wouldn't get back everything they'd lost, but at least there would be some restitution. And then there was my divorce. With Kyle in prison and the criminal case concluded, the divorce proceedings were almost anticlimactic. Kyle's lawyer tried to argue that I should get nothing because the marriage had been based on Kyle's illegal income, but my lawyer shut that down fast. Kyle Peterson's crimes don't negate his wife's right to marital assets, Claire argued. In fact, given that he drained their joint accounts before abandoning her, Ms. Hayes is entitled to significant compensation. The judge agreed. I was awarded the house, fully paid off, no mortgage. Kyle's legitimate assets, the ones that hadn't been seized by the feds, were split, with most going to me as compensation for the stolen money and emotional damages. His pension from his legitimate job would be garnished to pay me alimony. I'd never see anything close to the millions Kyle had stolen, but I'd be okay. Better than okay, actually. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday morning in May. I walked out of the courthouse legally free of Kyle Peterson, the sun warming my face, Claire beside me, and Cooper waiting in the car, tail wagging when he saw me approaching. "How does it feel?" Claire asked. "Like I can finally breathe," I said. That weekend, I had a ceremony. Not anything official or legal, just something for me. I took my wedding ring, the one Kyle had left on the bed that awful night, and buried it in the backyard, in the same spot where Cooper had found the documents that saved my life. "Here lies a lie," I said to Cooper, who watched with interest as I filled in the hole. "May it rest in peace." Then I planted a rosebush on top of it, something beautiful growing from something painful. It felt symbolic. Over the next few months, I focused on rebuilding my life. I threw myself into work, got a promotion I'd been too distracted to pursue before. I started therapy to process everything that had happened: the betrayal, the trauma, the violation of being set up as a fall guy. My relationship with my mother was complicated. She'd tried to be peacemaker during everything, wanting me to forgive Madison, wanting us all to be a family again, but she'd also been horrified by Kyle's actions and Madison's affair, and I think she finally understood that some betrayals can't be smoothed over with apologies and time. Madison and I didn't speak. True to my word, I'd cut her out of my life completely. I heard through Mom that she'd moved to Seattle, started over fresh where no one knew her as the woman who'd slept with her sister's husband. I hoped she found happiness eventually, but I didn't need to be part of that journey. The one relationship that grew stronger through everything was my friendship with Claire. She'd stood by me through the worst period of my life, fought for me, protected me. She was the sister I needed, the family I chose. And of course, there was Cooper. That dog became somewhat of a local celebrity after the case. The local news did a story: "Hero Dog Uncovers Evidence in a Multi-Million-Dollar Fraud Case." They interviewed me, got footage of Cooper looking adorably heroic, and suddenly my sweet golden retriever was famous. People would stop us during walks to ask if that was the dog from the news. Kids wanted to pet him. Someone even offered to buy his life rights for a movie. I politely declined. But to me, Cooper wasn't a hero or a celebrity. He was just my good boy who saved my life. He'd known Kyle was bad news long before I did. He'd protected me in the only way he knew how, by finding the evidence I needed to fight back. "You're smarter than any person I know," I told him one night, curled up together on the couch. "You saw through Kyle when I was too blind to see it." Cooper just wagged his tail and licked my hand, content to be exactly where he was. About 6 months after the trial ended, something unexpected happened. I met someone. His name was Ben, and we met at a dog park. His chocolate lab, Murphy, and Cooper hit it off immediately, playing and wrestling while Ben and I talked. He was a teacher, divorced, kind-eyed, and easy to talk to. "I saw your story on the news," he admitted after we'd been talking for a while, "about your ex-husband and the fraud case. That must have been incredibly difficult." "It was," I said, "but I survived. We survived." I gestured to Cooper, who was happily destroying a tennis ball with Murphy. "Dogs are good judges of character," Ben said, smiling. "If Cooper likes me, I must be doing something right." I laughed. "He is pretty perceptive. He hated my ex-husband from day one. I should have listened to him." "Well, for what it's worth, Murphy seems to like Cooper, and Murphy's usually pretty picky about his friends." We exchanged numbers that day, and over the next few weeks we started spending more time together. Coffee dates, dog park meetups, eventually dinner at a quiet restaurant where dogs weren't allowed, but we talked about them anyway. Ben never pushed, never tried to move faster than I was comfortable with. He understood that I'd been through trauma, that trust didn't come easy anymore, and he proved day by day that he was worth taking a chance on. Cooper approved, which honestly was the most important factor. If the dog says yes, I say yes, I told Claire over lunch one day. She laughed. Cooper's got better judgment than most people I know. He really does. Life wasn't perfect. I still had bad days where I'd think about Kyle's betrayal, about Madison's role in it, about how close I'd come to going to prison for crimes I didn't commit. But those days became fewer and farther between. I learned to trust again, slowly. I learned that not everyone was hiding something, that not every kindness had an ulterior motive. I learned that I was stronger than I'd ever known, that I could survive betrayal and come out the other side still whole. And I learned to listen to my dog. 1 year after Kyle was sentenced, I was home on a Saturday morning, working in my garden, a new hobby I'd taken up as part of my healing process, when Cooper started barking at the front gate. Not his normal someone's here bark, but his alert bark, the one that meant something wasn't right. I stood up, brushing dirt off my knees, and walked around the house to see what had caught his attention. A woman was standing at my front gate, mid-30s, professionally dressed, carrying a briefcase. She didn't look threatening, but Cooper's hackles were raised. "Can I help you?" I called out. "Jordan Hayes?" she asked. "Who's asking?" "My name's Ann Peterson. I'm Kyle's sister. I was hoping we could talk." I almost said no immediately. Anything connected to Kyle was something I wanted to stay far away from. But something in her expression, nervousness maybe, guilt, made me hesitate. "What do you want to talk about?" "Can I come in, please? I've driven 3 hours to see you, and I promise I'm not here to cause trouble. I need to tell you something." Against my better judgment, I opened the gate. Cooper stayed glued to my side, watching Anne warily as I led her to the back deck. "5 minutes, that's all you get." She nodded, setting her briefcase on the table. "Thank you. I know you have no reason to trust me or listen to anything I have to say, but I need you to know I had no idea what Kyle was doing. None of us did. When the news broke, when we learned about the fraud and the money and his plan to frame you, Jordan, I was sick. I'm still sick about it." "Okay," I said carefully, "but you drove 3 hours to tell me you're sorry. You could have done that in an email." "That's not why I'm here." She opened her briefcase and pulled out a folder. After Kyle was convicted, I started going through some things he'd left at our mother's house. Old boxes, paperwork, stuff from before he married you. And I found something you need to see. She handed me the folder. Inside were documents, legal papers, medical records, emails. "What am I looking at?" I asked. "Kyle's medical history, specifically his psychiatric evaluations from when he was in college." I started reading and my blood ran cold. Kyle had been diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder when he was 22 after a series of incidents at his university. He'd stolen money from his roommates, manipulated a professor into changing his grades, even been suspected of sabotaging a classmate's final project. The evaluation was damning. Patient shows marked lack of empathy, patterns of manipulative behavior, and willingness to harm others for personal gain. Recommend continued therapy, though patient shows no genuine interest in treatment. I said slowly, "He was diagnosed as a sociopath." "Essentially, yes, but he hid it well. He learned to mimic emotions, to say the right things, to appear normal. Our mother knew. She paid for his therapy for years, but she convinced herself he'd changed, that love and family would fix him." "Why are you showing me this?" Anne's eyes filled with tears. "Because you need to know that none of what happened was your fault. You couldn't have seen through Kyle because he'd spent his entire adult life learning to hide who he really was. He didn't love you. He's not capable of love. He married you because you were useful, because you had the credentials and the career he could use as cover for his schemes." I sat back, processing this. It explained so much. The coldness I'd sometimes glimpsed in Kyle, the way he could turn emotions on and off like a switch, the complete lack of remorse when he was caught. "There's more," Anne said. "I hired a private investigator to look into Kyle's activities before your marriage. Jordan, you weren't his first victim. There were two other women, one in California, one in Arizona. He'd done the same thing to them, built relationships, used their identities and credentials to set up fraudulent businesses, then disappeared when things got hot." She showed me reports on the other women. Women who, like me, had been accountants or financial professionals. Women Kyle had targeted specifically for what they could offer his schemes. "He had a pattern," I said. "Yes. And Madison, your sister, I'm so sorry, but she wasn't special to him. She was just a convenient exit strategy. Someone to blame, someone to distract you while he set up his frame job." "Does Madison know this?" "I sent her the same files I'm showing you. I thought she deserved to know too." I looked at the documents spread across my table, at the evidence of Kyle's calculated manipulations going back over a decade. Part of me was horrified, but another part, a bigger part, felt strangely relieved. It wasn't me. There was nothing I could have done differently, nothing I'd missed. Kyle was a predator who'd spent years perfecting his disguise. I'd never stood a chance of seeing through it. "Why give this to me now?" I asked Anne. "Because you deserve to know the truth, all of it. And because—" she hesitated. "Because I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed that my brother destroyed so many lives. I'm ashamed that my mother enabled him for years. I can't fix what Kyle did, but I can at least give you some closure." I said quietly, "Really, this helps more than you know." After Anne left, I sat on my deck for a long time, Cooper's head in my lap, reading through the documents again. Everything made sense now. The little moments that never quite added up, the times I'd felt manipulated but couldn't explain why. Kyle never loved me. He'd never been capable of it. But I had loved him, and that love was real, even if his wasn't. And that meant I was capable of loving again, of trusting again, of building something real with someone who deserved it. Like Ben, who'd been nothing but patient and kind and genuine. I pulled out my phone and texted him, "Want to come over for dinner? I could use the company." His response came immediately. "I'll bring wine and Murphy. See you at 6?" I smiled. Perfect. 3 months after Anne's visit, I was cleaning out my attic, something I'd been putting off for over a year because it was full of wedding photos and memories I didn't want to confront. But Ben had offered to help, and with him there, it felt more manageable. "Are you sure you want to do this?" he asked, carrying down another box of photos. "I need to," I said. "I can't move forward while I'm still surrounded by the past." We sorted through boxes systematically. Some things went to donation, Kyle's old clothes he'd left behind, books he'd never taken. Some things went in the trash, wedding albums, couple photos, the decorative items we'd bought together. And then I found something that made me stop cold. A small wooden box, hidden in the back corner under some old blankets. I didn't recognize it. "What's that?" Ben asked. "I have no idea." I opened it carefully. Inside was a journal, leather-bound, expensive-looking. Kyle's handwriting filled the pages. "Oh, God," I said. "It's his diary." "Do you want to read it?" Ben asked gently. "You don't have to. We can just throw it away." But I couldn't. Something compelled me to understand, to see into Kyle's mind one last time. I started reading. The first entries were from before we met, during his time in California with one of the women Anne had mentioned. Cold, calculating entries about how he'd selected her, how he'd planned to use her credentials, how easy it was to make her trust him. Then entries about meeting me. "Found the perfect mark today. Jordan Hayes, CPA, single, trusting. This one will be easier than the others." My hands shook as I read his assessments of me, his notes on how to manipulate me, his play-by-play of our courtship that had all been strategic moves in a game I didn't know we were playing. But then something changed. Entries from 2 years into our marriage showed something different. Jordan made dinner tonight, her mother's recipe. She looked so proud, showing me how to make it. Why does this make me feel uncomfortable? Came home stressed about work. Jordan didn't ask questions, just held me. Don't understand why that matters, but it does. Jordan laughs at my jokes, even the stupid ones. No one else does that. And then an entry from the 3 years before he left me. I think I might actually care about her. This wasn't supposed to happen. She's supposed to be a tool, a means to an end. But somewhere along the way, she became something else. This is a problem. The entries after that showed Kyle's internal struggle. He was incapable of real love, but he developed something, attachment maybe, or the closest thing to caring he could manage, and it terrified him. Need to end this. Jordan is making me weak. Started looking for an exit strategy. That's when Madison entered the picture. Kyle had deliberately pursued my sister, not because he wanted her, but because he needed an escape from feelings he couldn't process or control. Madison is perfect, young, impressionable, desperate for attention. Jordan will be so hurt by the betrayal she won't think straight. I can leave, take the money, and be gone before anyone figures it out. The last entry, dated the day before he left me. Tomorrow, I leave Jordan. This should be easy. I've done it before. But for some reason, I keep thinking about Cooper. That stupid dog never liked me, always knew something was wrong. Jordan trusts that dog more than she trusts herself. Maybe she should have listened to him from the beginning. Tomorrow, everything changes. I'll be free of this uncomfortable feeling Jordan creates in me. Back to what I'm good at, taking what I want, feeling nothing. That's better. That's safer. I closed the journal, tears streaming down my face. Jordan? Ben's hand was on my shoulder. What is it? He felt something for me, I said. Not love, exactly. He wasn't capable of that, but something. And it scared him so much he destroyed everything to get away from it. I'm sorry. Don't be. This actually helps. He wasn't completely unfeeling. He just couldn't handle feeling anything, so he burned it all down. It wasn't about me being inadequate or not enough. It was about him being broken. I took the journal to the fireplace and set it on the logs. Cooper came over and sat beside me, watching as I lit the match. "Goodbye, Kyle," I said, watching the pages catch fire. "I hope someday you find peace, but I don't have to carry you anymore." The journal burned. Ben held my hand. Cooper leaned against my leg, solid and real and loyal. That night, Den stayed for dinner. We cooked together in my kitchen, laughing when Murphy and Cooper got tangled up under our feet. It was simple, comfortable, real. "I'm glad you're here," I told him as we cleaned up. "I'm glad you let me in," he said. "I know that wasn't easy." "Cooper approves," I said, watching our dogs curled up together on the living room floor. "That's the highest endorsement possible." Ben laughed. "Cooper's a good judge of character. The best." Later, after Ben had gone home, I sat with Cooper on the back deck, looking at the stars. "We did it, buddy," I told him. "We survived. We're okay." Cooper's tail thumped against the deck. "Thank you for finding those documents. Thank you for warning me about Kyle. Thank you for being exactly what I needed when everything fell apart." He licked my hand, his eyes full of that unconditional love only dogs seem capable of giving. Madison had taken my husband. She'd betrayed me in the worst way possible, but she hadn't taken Cooper. She couldn't take the one soul that truly mattered, the one who'd stayed loyal when everyone else had abandoned me. And in the end, that was what saved me. 2 years after Kyle's sentencing, I was invited to a wedding. Claire's daughter, Emma, was getting married. Claire had been there for me through everything, and I wouldn't have missed it for the world. Ben came with me as my date. We'd been together for over a year by then, taking things slow, building something real. He'd met Cooper first, after all, and earned his approval before earning mine. The wedding was beautiful. Emma was radiant, her husband-to-be looking at her like she hung the moon. During the ceremony, I felt Ben's hand find mine, squeezing gently. "You okay?" he whispered. "Yeah," I whispered back. "I really am." At the reception, Claire pulled me aside. "Thank you for coming," she said, hugging me tight. "I know weddings might be hard for you after everything." "It's different when it's real love," I said, "when people are choosing each other for the right reasons. Emma and Josh are going to be happy." "They are," Claire agreed. "And speaking of happy, you and Ben look good together." I smiled. "We are good together. He's patient, kind, honest. Everything Kyle wasn't." "And Cooper approves?" "Cooper loves him. That's really all that matters." We laughed, and I thought about how far I'd come. 2 years ago, I'd been broken, betrayed, nearly destroyed. Now I was here, at a wedding, genuinely happy for the bride and groom, with a good man by my side, and a future that felt bright instead of terrifying. During the reception, while Ben was getting us drinks, Madison appeared beside me. I hadn't seen her in 2 years. She looked different, older, more subdued. The confidence she'd always carried was gone, replaced by something more uncertain. "Jordan," she said quietly, "I know you don't want to see me. I'll leave if you want, but I saw you across the room and I needed to say something." Part of me wanted to walk away, but a bigger part was curious. "What?" "I'm sorry. I know I've said it before, but I need you to know I mean it. What I did was unforgivable. I destroyed us, destroyed our family, for a man who was using both of us. I was selfish and stupid, and I threw away the most important relationship in my life." "Yes, you did," I said simply. "I'm in therapy now, trying to figure out why I did what I did, why I needed to compete with you so badly that I'd betray you. I'm working on myself." "Good. I'm glad." "Are you happy?" she asked. I looked across the room at Ben, who was laughing with Claire's husband, at Cooper, who was lying under our table, despite dogs not being technically allowed at the reception. Claire had made an exception for the hero dog, and my life, rebuilt from ruins. "Yes," I said, "I really am." "I'm glad. You deserve to be happy. You always did." Madison hesitated, then added, "I saw that man you're with. He looks at you the way Kyle never did." "He does," I agreed, "because he's real, and what we have is real. I'm dating someone too, nothing serious yet, but he's a good person, normal, kind, the opposite of Kyle in every way." "Good. You deserve that too, Madison, eventually." She looked surprised. "You really mean that?" "I do. I'm not ready to be sisters again. I might never be, but I don't wish you harm. I just wished you'd figured out who you wanted to be before you destroyed who we were." "Me too," she whispered. "Me too." She left after that, and I watched her go, feeling something I hadn't expected to feel. Peace. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't holding on to rage or hurt. I'd processed it, worked through it, and come out the other side. Ben returned with our drinks. "Was that—" "Yeah, Madison." "You okay?" "I'm great, actually." I took his hand. "Dance with me?" We danced, and I felt lighter than I had in years. The past was the past. Kyle was in prison. Madison was working on herself. And I was here, in the present, with a man who loved me and a dog who saved my life. The photographer came around taking candid shots of guests. She snapped one of Ben and I dancing, Cooper visible in the background, watching us like the loyal guardian he was. Later, when Claire sent me the wedding photos, that picture of the three of us, me, Ben, and Cooper, became my favorite. We looked happy, real, like a family. I had it printed in frames, hanging it in my living room where Kyle and Mai's wedding photo used to hang. A reminder of what real love looked like, what real loyalty meant, what real happiness felt like. My sister took my husband, but she hadn't taken what mattered most, my strength, my resilience, my capacity to love again. And she definitely hadn't taken my dog. Cooper had stayed. Through the worst of it, through the betrayal and the investigation and the trial and the rebuilding, Cooper had stayed. And that made all the difference. 6 months after Claire's daughter's wedding, on a crisp autumn morning, Ben and I took Cooper and Murphy hiking at Silver Falls State Park. The leaves were turning brilliant shades of orange and red, and the waterfalls were running high from recent rain. We'd been hiking for about an hour when Ben suggested we stop at one of the overlooks for a break. Cooper and Murphy immediately started exploring, sniffing everything, tails wagging. "This is nice," I said, sitting on a boulder and looking out at the view. I needed this. "Me too." Ben sat beside me, and I noticed he seemed nervous. "Jordan, there's something I want to talk to you about." My stomach clenched automatically, trauma response. Anytime someone said they needed to talk, I still expected bad news. But then Ben pulled out a small box, and my heart started racing for a completely different reason. "I know you've been through hell," he said. "I know trusting someone again wasn't easy for you, and I know that marriage might be a scary word after what Kyle put you through. Jordan, let me finish," he said gently. "I'm not Kyle. I'll never be Kyle. I don't have offshore accounts or secret schemes. I'm just a high school teacher who thinks you're the most amazing person he's ever met. I love you, Jordan, and I love Cooper, who I'm pretty sure is the actual head of this relationship." I laughed through sudden tears. "I want to build a life with you. A real one, based on honesty and trust and terrible jokes. So, Jordan Hayes, will you marry me?" He opened the box. Inside was a simple ring. Nothing flashy, nothing expensive, just beautiful in its simplicity. "Yes," I said immediately. "Yes, absolutely yes." Ben slit the ring onto my finger, and Cooper chose that exact moment to bark and jump on both of us, tail wagging frantically like he understood what was happening. "Good timing, buddy," Ben laughed, scratching Cooper behind his ears. "He approves," I said. "That's the most important thing." "I actually asked his permission first," Ben admitted, "gave him a treat and everything." I kissed him, happy tears streaming down my face. "You asked my dog for permission to marry me?" "Of course. Cooper saved your life. He gets veto power on all major decisions." We sat there on that overlook, 2 dogs, 2 humans, planning a future together. And for the first time in years, the future felt bright and open and full of possibilities instead of dangers. That evening, I called Claire to tell her the news. "Finally," she screamed. "I've been waiting for him to propose for months. I knew it was coming." "You did?" "He asked me for advice on rings. I told him to keep it simple and let Cooper be involved somehow. Did he listen?" "He asked Cooper's permission." "Perfect. That man is a keeper, Jordan." "I know," I said, looking at the ring on my finger. "I really know." My mother was thrilled when I told her. "Oh, honey, I'm so happy for you. Ben is wonderful. Nothing like—" "Don't," I said gently. "We don't say his name anymore." "Right, sorry. But Jordan, I'm proud of you. For surviving, for healing, for opening your heart again. That takes real courage." "Thanks, Mom." I didn't tell Madison. We weren't in contact, and I didn't see a reason to change that. Maybe someday we'd rebuild something, but it wouldn't be for a wedding announcement. The wedding planning was completely different from my first marriage. No stress, no pressure, just joy. We decided on a small ceremony, immediate family and close friends only, in Claire's backyard. And Cooper would be the ring bearer, of course. "I'm not getting married without him," I told Ben. "He's the reason we're here." "Agreed. Murphy can be a groomsman." We laughed about our dog-centric wedding, but we meant it. Cooper saved my life. He deserved to be a part of the day I promised my life to someone else. The wedding happened on a sunny Saturday in June. 50 people, a simple ceremony, vows that we wrote ourselves. When it was time for the rings, Cooper walked down the aisle with them attached to his collar, looking proud and handsome in his bow tie. The entire crowd laughed and clapped. Several people were crying. Happy tears this time. Jordan Hayes then said, taking my hands, "You are the strongest, bravest person I know. Thank you for trusting me with your heart. Thank you for letting me be part of your story. I promise to be honest, to be kind, and to always listen to Cooper's advice." More laughter, more tears. "Ben Mitchell," I said, "you showed me that real love exists, that not everyone is hiding something, that I could trust again. Thank you for being patient, for being real, for being exactly who you are. I promise to love you, to trust you, and to never ignore Cooper's warnings about people." We kissed, and Cooper barked his approval, and everyone cheered. At the reception, someone asked me to give a speech. I stood up, glass of champagne in hand, Cooper sitting at my feet, Ben beside me, looking at me like I was the best thing that had ever happened to him. 2.5 years ago, I began, I thought my life was over. My husband left me for my sister. They took everything, my money, my house, my dignity. But they couldn't take Cooper. They couldn't take the one soul that truly mattered, the one who stayed loyal when everyone else left. I looked down at Cooper, who tilted his head, listening. Cooper saved me, not in some dramatic, heroic way, though he did help uncover evidence that proved my ex-husband was a criminal. But more than that, Cooper showed me what real loyalty looks like, what unconditional love means. He stayed with me through the darkest days of my life, and he never asked for anything in return except maybe some extra treats and belly rubs. People laughed. So here's what I learned. Sometimes the people we trust most will betray us. Sometimes the life we built will fall apart. Sometimes everything we believed in will turn out to be a lie. But the right people and the right dogs will stay. They'll see us at our worst and love us anyway. They'll protect us even when we don't know we need protecting. I raised my glass. To loyalty. To second chances. To dogs who are smarter than their humans. And to Ben, who proved that real love is possible if you're brave enough to try again. Thank you all for being here to celebrate with us. Everyone raised their glasses. To loyalty. To love. To Cooper. Cooper barked, delighted by the attention. Later, during the dancing, I pulled Ben close. Thank you, I said. For what? For being patient, for being real, for loving my dog. Our dog, he corrected. Cooper's family now. We're all family. I looked around at the people celebrating with us, Claire and her family, my mother, Ben's parents and siblings, our friends, real people who loved us for who we actually were, not what they could get from us. And I looked at Cooper, watching over everyone like the guardian he'd always been. My sister had taken my husband. She'd betrayed me in the worst possible way. But in doing so, she'd actually freed me from a marriage built on lies, freed me from a man who'd been using me from the beginning, freed me to find something real. Cooper had known all along. He'd tried to tell me with his digging, his anxiety, his refusal to trust Kyle. I should have listened sooner, but I was listening now. "What are you thinking about?" Ben asked, following my gaze to Cooper. "I'm thinking that I'm the luckiest person alive because I have you, and I have Cooper, and I have a future full of honesty and real love. That's more than I ever thought I'd have again." "We're the lucky ones, Cooper and I both," Ben said. We danced under the string lights in Claire's backyard, our dogs playing nearby, our friends and family celebrating around us. And I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The betrayal, the discovery, the fight for truth, the healing. It had been hell, but I'd survived it. I'd come through it stronger, wiser, more careful, but also more open to real connection. And I learned the most important lesson of all. Never underestimate the wisdom of a loyal dog. Cooper had saved me, and in saving me, he'd led me to this moment, remarried, happy, surrounded by people who genuinely loved me. My sister took my husband, but she couldn't take my future. She couldn't take my strength. She couldn't take my capacity to love again. And she definitely couldn't take my dog. So that's my story. From betrayal to discovery, to justice to love. From the worst day of my life to the best day. All because a golden retriever knew something was wrong and wouldn't stop digging until he found the proof I needed. I want to know, do you have a pet that saved you in some way? Maybe not as dramatically as Cooper saved me, but in their own special way. Drop your story in the comments below. Let's celebrate the animals that make our lives better just by being in them. And tell me, what would you have done if you found those documents in your backyard? Would you have confronted your ex like I did, or would you have gone straight to the police? I'm curious what path you would have taken. If this story moved you, if it reminded you why we love our dogs so much, do me a favor. Hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear that betrayal isn't the end, that healing is possible, that loyalty exists. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future stories. Most importantly, listen to your pets. They know things we don't. They see through people's disguises. They protect us in ways we don't always recognize until later. Cooper tried to warn me about Kyle from the beginning. I just wish I'd paid attention sooner. Trust your dog. They're usually right. Thanks for listening to my story. Give your pets extra treats tonight. They deserve it. And remember, the right people and the right animals will stay loyal when everything else falls apart. Hold on to them tight. Stay strong, stay brave, and never underestimate the wisdom of a loyal dog.